The empty streets. The colony streets were silent. The neon lights of alien shops flickered weakly against the cold wind that moved through the settlement. It was not Earth, but a distant world where humans had been pushed to the edge of survival. Between the tall iron buildings, a thin woman walked slowly, carrying a child wrapped in torn cloth. Her steps were heavy, her face pale, and her eyes filled with quiet pain. For 3 days, she had eaten nothing. Her child's voice was no longer sharp but soft, almost fading like a dying flame. The streets were crowded with aliens, creatures, with tall frames, metallic skin, and glowing eyes. They walked proudly, dressed in rich clothes, while the woman struggled to even keep standing. No one looked at her. No one cared. She pressed the child against her chest, whispering softly, "Hold on, my little one. Mama will find something. Anything." Her words shook in the cold air. On the other side of the street, a group of alien traders laughed loudly, holding plates filled with food. The smell of roasted meat and warm bread spread through the air. Her stomach twisted painfully at the smell. Her child whimpered weakly. That sound broke her heart more than her own hunger. With trembling legs, she walked toward the aliens. Each step felt like lifting a mountain. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "Please, may I have your leftovers? For my child?" The aliens turned to look at her. Their glowing eyes scanned her from head to toe. For a moment there was silence. Then one of them laughed. Another pushed his plate forward, not to give food, but to show her what she could not have. "You humans," one of them sneered. "Always begging, always weak." Her lips trembled. She wanted to turn back, but her child let out a faint cry. Too faint, too fragile. She bowed her head and whispered again, "Please, just for my child. He has not eaten in 3 days." The aliens only laughed louder. One dropped a piece of bread on the dirty ground in front of her boots. "Here," he said mockingly, "eat from the dirt where you belong." Her heart sank. She stared at the bread, dirty from the dust of the street. For a moment she thought about picking it up, but her hands shook. She looked at her child. 2, weak to even cry now. Tears filled her eyes. Across the street, a man sat quietly on a broken bench. His face was rough, scarred by old battles. His clothes were simple, but on his arm was a faded patch, an emblem of the human fleet, the soldiers who once fought for freedom. He had been watching the scene in silence, his eyes cold and steady. When the aliens laughed again, his hands clenched into fists. He had seen cruelty in war, but this, mocking a mother and her starving child, cut deeper than any wound. The woman bent down slowly. She wanted to take the bread from the dirt because her child's life was worth more than her pride. Her fingers were about to touch it when the sound of boots echoed on the stone street. The soldier had stood up. His steps were firm, strong, filled with authority. The aliens stopped laughing when they noticed him walking closer. Something about him made the air heavier. The woman froze, still on her knees. She looked up at the man. His eyes were sharp, full of fire, though his face carried sadness. He bent down, lifted the bread, and brushed the dirt away with his hand. Then he placed it gently in the woman's palm. "Feed your child," he said in a low voice, steady as iron. The woman's lips parted, but no words came. She only clutched the bread tightly, tears falling onto her cheeks. The soldier turned his head toward the aliens. For a moment, no one spoke. His voice then broke the silence, calm but dangerous. "You should be ashamed." The aliens shifted uncomfortably, but one tried to laugh it off. "Who are you to lecture us, old man?" The soldier's hand brushed against the patch on his arm. His voice was cold as steel. "Someone who still remembers what it means to be human." The street grew quiet. The mother pressed the bread against her child's lips. The boy weakly chewed, and for the first time in days, a hint of life returned to his small face. The woman cried silently, kissing his forehead. The aliens muttered among themselves, some mocking, some uneasy. But the soldier remained there, standing like a wall between the woman and their cruelty. His eyes scanned the crowd, and those who met his gaze looked away. The night grew darker. The neon lights flickered again, painting the broken street in shades of red and blue. The woman sat on the ground, holding her child, whispering prayers of thanks. The soldier walked a few steps away, then stopped. He looked back at her, his expression unreadable. In his heart, he knew this was not the end. If one child starved tonight, how many more had already fallen silent in the shadows? The wind carried the faint sound of the child's breathing, stronger now but fragile. The soldier's jaw tightened. Somewhere deep inside him, an old fire began to rise. The empty streets would not stay empty for long. The child's faint cry. The night deepened over the colony, but the woman could not feel the cold. Her whole world was wrapped in the weak body of her child. The bread in her hand was small, but to her it felt like treasure. She broke it carefully into little pieces, pressing one piece softly against her child's lips. The boy's mouth opened slowly. His tiny tongue touched the bread, and he chewed with fragile strength. For the first time in 3 days, food entered his stomach. His eyes, half closed from weakness, blinked once. The faint sound that escaped him was not a cry of pain, but the soft whimper of relief. The mother's heart broke all over again, this time not from sorrow, but from the simple joy of seeing her child still alive. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She kissed his forehead, whispering, "You will live, my son. You will live." Yet the street around her did not share her relief. The aliens still stood nearby, whispering to each other in mocking tones. Some pointed at her as if she was nothing more than a beggar in the dirt. Their cruel laughter mixed with the cold wind. But the soldier did not move. He stood like a wall, his eyes watching everything. In his heart, memories rose like ghosts. He remembered battlefields on ruined planets, where humans had fought with bare hands against alien weapons. He remembered children crying in shelters, while soldiers swore oaths to protect them. And now, here in the colony, he saw the same suffering returning. The child's faint cry reached his ears again, a soft sound, but sharper than any blade. That cry was not only a child's hunger, it was a cry of all humanity living in silence, all those who had been forced to bow their heads. It was a cry of dignity slipping away. The soldier took a slow breath. He stepped closer to the mother. His shadow fell across her and her child, shielding them from the cold stares of the aliens. He crouched down, his scarred hand resting gently on the child's fragile chest. The boy's heartbeat was weak, but it was still there. "He will survive, tonight," the soldier said quietly. His voice was low but filled with weight, as if it carried the strength of many battles. But how many more children are hidden in these streets, suffering the same way? The mother looked up at him, her lips trembling. "There are many," she whispered. "Too many. We humans here, we are forgotten. The aliens keep us working in mines and factories. But when hunger comes, they turn away. Some of our people have already lost their children. I was afraid I would lose mine too." Her words fell like stones in the soldier's chest. He closed his eyes for a moment, and in the darkness of his mind, he saw the faces of soldiers he had once commanded, men and women who had fought, bled, and died for humanity. They had not given their lives for this future, a future where mothers begged for scraps while aliens laughed. The aliens, irritated by the silence, sneered again. "You humans will always be weak," one said. "You should be grateful we let you live here at all." The soldier's eyes opened, burning with quiet fire. He rose slowly to his feet, towering over them. His voice was calm, but the tone carried steel. "Be careful with your words. I have buried enemies greater than you, and I will not watch you spit on a mother's pain." The aliens shifted, uneasy now. There was something in his gaze, something that reminded them of stories from long ago, of battles where humans had fought like beasts of fire. The mother clutched her child closer, watching in silence. For the first time, she felt she was not alone. Someone stood for her. Someone remembered what it meant to be human. But the moment did not end there. From the shadows of nearby alleys, other humans began to appear. Thin men, tired women, children with hollow eyes. They had heard the faint cry too, and it had drawn them like a bell in the night. They stood quietly, watching the soldier, their faces pale but their eyes holding a spark of hope. The soldier noticed them. His jaw tightened. He knew this was dangerous. Hope could either save them or bring punishment from the aliens. But he also knew that once hope was lit, it could not be stopped. The child whimpered again, softer this time, but alive. The sound carried through the empty streets. It was more than hunger. It was a call. The soldier turned his head, scanning the crowd of humans now gathering. His voice, though quiet, carried across the cold night. No human child should ever cry of hunger. Again, not while we are still alive. The words struck the air like thunder. The mother gasped softly, holding her child tighter. The humans in the crowd exchanged glances. Some were afraid, but others lifted their heads for the first time in years. The aliens, sensing the change in the air, stepped back. Their mocking laughter faded. The soldier's presence was too heavy, too dangerous. The mother looked at him with wide, tearful eyes. She had begged only for food, but now she realized something greater had begun. Her child's faint cry had awakened not just her pain, but the spirit of a soldier, and maybe the spirit of all humans here. The night no longer felt empty. The streets, once silent, were now alive with whispers of change. And in the arms of a mother, a child chewed weakly on bread, the smallest act, but the start of something that could shake the colony itself. A soldier's oath. The night stretched long, but no one moved away from the street. The mother sat with her child still in her arms, whispering soft prayers of thanks. Around her, more humans had gathered, silent shadows who had lived too long in fear. Their faces carried the same look, hollow cheeks, tired eyes and bodies, broken by endless work. Yet tonight, something had changed. They were no longer invisible. The soldier stood at the center of it all, tall and unshaken. His scars caught the glow of neon lights, his uniform torn and faded. On his arm, the old human fleet emblem was still visible, though worn with age. Many of the younger humans in the crowd did not even know what it meant. But the older ones, those who had once heard stories of the Great War, stared at it with wide eyes. One old man whispered, "That mark." He was a soldier. Another replied softly, "No, not just a soldier. That is the mark of a captain." The murmur spread through the crowd. The soldier remained silent, but his mind was heavy with memories. He remembered the day he took his oath. Years ago, standing on the deck of a starship, surrounded by men and women who had sworn to fight for Earth. Their voices had been strong. "We fight not for power, but for the survival of humankind. We protect the weak, we guard the future." That oath had lived in his chest like a fire. Even when battles were lost, even when his comrades fell, he had carried it. Now, standing in this broken colony, watching a mother beg for bread, he felt The same fire burn again. Humanity had not been crushed by alien weapons. It was being crushed by silence, by hunger, by humiliation, and he could not let that continue. He turned toward the woman. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear and hope. At the same time, she held her child close, afraid that speaking might draw more cruelty. But the soldier knelt before her, his voice steady. Your child has a heartbeat. As long as he breathes, there is hope. And I swear to you, no child of humanity will be left to starve while I still live. The words were simple, but they fell, like thunder across the crowd. The mother covered her mouth, tears spilling again. The humans standing nearby shifted. Some lowered their heads, afraid of punishment from the alien guards. Others clenched their fists, feeling strength return after years of being bent low. One alien traitor laughed harshly. Big words, soldier, but you are alone. Your kind is broken. Your fleets are gone. You are nothing but dust under our boots. The soldier rose to his full height. His shadow stretched across the alien like a storm cloud. His voice was calm, but each word cut like a blade. I have fought against fleets 10 times stronger than you. I have buried commanders who thought humans were weak. And I will fight again, if I must. Alone or not, it does not matter. My oath remains. The aliens stepped back, uneasy. They had expected fear. They had expected silence. Instead, they saw fire. The crowd of humans drew closer now. A young boy, no older than 12, whispered to his father, Papa, can he save us? The father had no answer, but he placed a hand on his son's shoulder. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to hope. The soldier looked around, meeting the eyes of the people. His voice grew stronger, carrying across the broken street. You are not weak. You are not slaves. You are human. And humans have survived worse than this. We survived the fires of war, the darkness of space, and the cruelty of empires. We will survive this too, but only if we remember who we are. The words lit something in the crowd. The mother felt it in her chest. The old man straightened his back. The children listened with wide eyes. For so long they had lived in silence, afraid to speak, afraid to even dream. But now, they were hearing something dangerous, something powerful. The aliens muttered nervously. Quiet them, one hissed. If they rise, the colony will burn. But the soldier did not stop. He stepped closer to the mother again, touching the child's forehead gently. This little one is the reason I fight. He is the reason we must stand, because one day he will grow. And when he asks us what it means to be human, we cannot tell him we stayed silent while he starved. We must show him that we rose. The mother pressed the child tighter against her chest. Her tears fell on his tiny face, but her voice did not shake when she whispered, We will rise. The soldier nodded. His oath was no longer his alone. The child's faint cry had become a call, and tonight he had answered it. The neon lights flickered again, and the wind carried whispers through the colony streets. Humans were stirring. The fire was spreading. The soldier turned his face to the stars, hidden behind thick clouds of smoke. He remembered his comrades' voices, their final battle cries, their promises. He whispered softly, almost to himself, I did not forget. I will never forget. The oath remains. And with those words, the night felt less dark. Shadows of injustice. The night was deep, yet the colony streets did not sleep. After the soldier's words, a strange energy filled the air. The humans who once walked with bowed heads now stood in small groups, whispering to each other. Their voices carried both fear and something long forgotten, hope. The mother sat on the cold stone floor, her child finally resting with food in his belly. She looked at the soldier again and again, as if she wanted to believe he was real. For years, no one had dared to speak against the aliens. And yet here he was, standing like a tower, daring to speak aloud the words that lived silently in their hearts. But hope was dangerous. From the corner of the street, alien guards appeared. Their tall frames shimmered under the neon lights, their armor reflecting cold silver. Their faces, emotionless and cruel, scanned the crowd. The moment they saw humans gathering, their eyes narrowed. One guard hissed in his strange tongue, and the others gripped their weapons tighter. The humans shrank back instantly. Fear returned, heavy and choking. Mothers pulled their children behind them, men lowered their eyes, and silence swallowed the whispers. The colony had lived too long under this shadow of fear. One look from the alien guards, and hope turned fragile again. The soldier did not move. His eyes followed the guards as they marched closer. Every step of theirs sounded like thunder on the stone ground. He could feel the crowd shrinking behind him, but he did not step away. The lead guard, tall and broad, raised his voice. "What is this gathering?" His words, though translated through a machine, carried arrogance. "Humans do not gather without permission." No one answered. The humans were too afraid. Even the mother lowered her head again, clutching her child tightly, as if hiding him could save him. The soldier stepped forward. His voice was calm, but it carried strength. "They gathered because they are starving. They gathered because they are forgotten. And they will no longer suffer in silence." The guard's eyes flared with cold light. "You dare to speak?" "I dare," the soldier replied firmly. The silence that followed was thick. The humans gasped softly, some trembling at his boldness. The aliens looked at each other, uncertain for a brief second. They were not used to humans answering back, not like this. The lead guard laughed, a sharp and cruel sound. "You are one man, one old soldier. You cannot protect them all." The soldier's jaw tightened. He remembered his comrades, the oaths, the countless times he had stood against enemies far greater than this. He remembered battles where hope itself had been the only weapon, and it had been enough. "I am not alone," he said quietly. Then, he turned his head slightly, his eyes sweeping across the humans hiding in the shadows. "Are we not more than slaves? Are we not human?" For a moment, the silence continued. But then something small happened. An old woman stepped forward from the crowd. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "My grandson died last winter because we had no food. No one listened when I begged. Not the guards, not the traders." Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. "He was only 5. The guard growled, "Silence, human!" But the soldier lifted his hand, stopping the guard from stepping forward. He looked at the old woman, his voice soft. "Your words matter. Speak." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "We suffer, and we bury our children quietly because we fear their punishment. But tonight I cannot stay silent. My grandson's voice is gone, but mine still remains." A ripple moved through the crowd. Another man stepped forward. He had hollow cheeks and rough hands from years of mining. "I lost my wife," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "She fell ill, and the aliens would not give medicine. They said we were not worth the cost." One by one, voices began to rise. A mother, a worker, a child old enough to speak, all telling stories of loss. Each word was heavy, filled with pain. The soldier listened in silence, his chest heavy but his resolve hardening. This was the truth of the colony, hidden, buried under fear, now finally coming out. Shadows of injustice stretched long, but light was starting to pierce them. The alien guards grew restless. They had not expected this. One of them raised his weapon threateningly, pointing it at the crowd. "Enough! Humans speak too much!" The humans froze. The voices died instantly. Fear tried to choke them again. But the soldier stepped forward, placing himself between the guard and the people. His eyes burned with fire. "Touch them," he said, his voice low but sharp, "and you will regret it." The guard hesitated. Something in the soldier's stance, calm, unshaken, dangerous, made even the armed alien falter. Behind him, the mother whispered to her child, "See, my son, there is still someone who remembers us." Her tears fell softly, but her voice carried pride this time. The soldier knew this moment was fragile. He could not fight the guards alone, not yet. But he also knew one truth. Silence had been broken. And once broken, it could never be restored. He looked at the crowd once more, his voice steady as iron. "Do not hide your stories. Do not bury your pain. The world must hear your voices. For every child lost, for every mother starved, for every life stolen, we will rise. I swear it." The humans held their breath, their eyes wide. For the first time in years, they felt that their suffering was not invisible. Their pain was seen. Their voices mattered. The guards stepped back slowly, their faces twisted with anger, but also unease. They could silence one voice, but tonight, too many had spoken. As the neon lights flickered above, the soldier's words echoed in every heart. The shadows of injustice were still heavy, but now they carried cracks, and through those cracks, hope was beginning to shine. The humans froze. The voices died instantly. Fear tried to choke them again, but the soldier stepped forward, placing himself between the guard and the people. His eyes burned with fire. "Touch them," he said, his voice low but sharp, "and you will regret it." The guard hesitated. Something in the soldier's stance, calm, unshaken, dangerous, made even the armed alien falter. Behind him, the mother whispered to her child, "See, my son, there is still someone who remembers us." Her tears fell softly, but her voice carried pride this time. The soldier knew this moment was fragile. He could not fight the guards alone, not yet. But he also knew one truth. Silence had been broken. And once broken, it could never be restored. He looked at the crowd once more, his voice steady as iron. "Do not hide your stories. Do not bury your pain. The world must hear your voices. For every child lost, for every mother starved, for every life stolen, we will rise. I swear it." The humans held their breath, their eyes wide. For the first time in years, they felt that their suffering was not invisible. Their pain was seen. Their voices mattered. The guards stepped back slowly, their faces twisted with anger, but also unease. They could silence one voice, but tonight, too many had spoken. As the neon lights flickered above, the soldier's words echoed in every heart. The shadows of injustice were still heavy, but now they carried cracks. And through those cracks, hope was beginning to shine, rising flames. The night after the confrontation was heavy with silence, but it was not the same silence of fear. It was the silence that comes before a storm. The humans of the colony whispered in their homes, passing the story from one ear to another. A soldier stood against the guards. He fed a starving child. He spoke of rising again. The mother who had begged for bread sat in the corner of her small hut, holding her child close. His weak body now carried a spark of life, and every breath he took gave her courage. She thought about the soldier's words, about how he had placed himself between her and the aliens. For the first time since she had been brought to this colony, she felt she was not completely alone. But she also felt fear. The aliens would not let this stand. They had built their rule on silence and obedience. If humans began to speak, if humans began to hope, then their power would tremble. And she was right. The next day, alien officials arrived in the colony square. They came with banners, armored guards, and cruel smiles. The leader, a tall alien, with silver skin, stood on the platform and spoke loudly, his voice echoing across the square. Humans are weak. Humans are slaves. You will not gather without permission. You will not speak without order. Anyone who breaks this rule will be punished. The crowd listened in silence, their heads lowered. But inside, the fire had already been lit. The soldier stood at the back, his arms crossed, his eyes locked on the alien leader. His presence alone gave courage to those around him. Children peeked from behind their mothers. Old men clenched their fists. For years they had bent their heads low, but now they were lifting their eyes. The alien leader noticed. His voice grew sharper. "Who among you dares to challenge us? Who dares to break the silence?" The soldier stepped forward. The crowd gasped. His boots echoed on the stone as he walked into the center of the square. The aliens stiffened, their weapons ready, but the leader raised a hand, signaling them to wait. The soldier's voice rang clear. "I dare, because I swore an oath to protect humanity. And I will not let mothers bury their children while you feast on riches. This colony does not belong to you. It belongs to the people who built it with their blood and sweat." The square exploded with whispers. Some humans clapped hands over their mouths, terrified at his boldness. Others felt tears burn in their eyes. These were the words they had been afraid to speak for so long. The alien leader snarled. "One man cannot save you. Your fleets are gone. Your worlds are broken. Do you not see? Humanity is finished." The soldier's eyes burned with fire. "No, humanity is never finished. We may bend, we may bleed, but we do not break. And if you doubt this, look around." He turned to the humans gathered. His voice grew louder, stronger, like the roar of a storm. "How many of you have lost children to hunger? How many have buried loved ones because of their cruelty? How many have suffered in silence, day after day, year after year? Will you continue to bow? Or will you rise?" At first, silence. Fear was heavy, chains pressing on every throat. But then, the old woman from before stepped forward again. Her voice trembled, but she raised it. "I will rise for my grandson." A miner followed, his hands rough and scarred. "I will rise for my wife." Another mother stepped forward. "I will rise for my child." One by one, voices broke free from fear. The square filled with cries, louder and louder, until the humans shouted together, "We will rise!" The aliens stepped back in shock. This was not the weak, broken crowd they had ruled over. This was something dangerous, something alive. The soldier raised his arm high. His voice thundered over the chants. "Then let it begin. No longer will we live in shadows. No longer will we starve while they laugh. From tonight, we stand together. And when humans stand together, we are unstoppable." The square shook with the sound of hundreds of voices shouting as one. The fear that had chained them for years was breaking, link by link. The alien leader hissed, signaling the guards. "Crush them now!" The guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the humans surged forward, not with guns, not with blades, but with strength born of pain and courage. Stones were thrown. Tools from miners' hands were lifted like weapons. The crowd's roar drowned the alien command. The mother, still clutching her child, stood in the corner of the square. Her heart raced as she watched. Fear still shook her, but pride filled her too. Her child's faint cry had lit this fire. And now, the flames were rising higher than anyone could stop. The soldier stood at the front, unshaken, his fists ready. He knew blood would be spilled, perhaps his own. But it did not matter. This was more than a fight. This was dignity. This was humanity. As the first clash began, the neon lights above flickered wildly, painting the square in bursts of red and blue. Screams, shouts, and the clash of metal filled the night. The rebellion had begun. The Battle of Dignity. The colony square burned with chaos. The shouts of humans and the hisses of alien guards clashed like thunder and lightning. Stones cracked against armor, wooden sticks struck metal, and the sharp hum of alien weapons filled the air. The humans had no shields, no guns, no soldiers, only their hands, their tools, and their rage. But tonight, rage was enough. The mother stood in the shadows, clutching her child tightly. She trembled at the sight of alien soldiers raising their energy rifles, but her eyes never left the scarred soldier at the front. He moved like a wall, of iron, unshaken even when faced with death. His every shout carried strength that pushed humans forward. "Stand together!" he roared. "Do not break!" The humans roared back. Miners swung their heavy tools like hammers. Workers threw metal. Scraps and children screamed to distract the guards. The aliens were stronger, their armor unyielding, their weapons deadly, but they were outnumbered by the will of hundreds of desperate humans. The lead alien guard fired his weapon into the crowd. A blue beam shot through the air, throwing a man to the ground. The crowd froze in horror. The man's chest smoked, his body still. Fear rushed back like a flood. Mothers cried out, men stumbled back. The old chains of silence began to tighten again. But before fear could claim them, the soldier leapt forward. He struck the guard with his bare fists, grabbing the weapon and slamming it against the ground. Sparks flew. The guard staggered, shocked that a human dared touch him. The soldier's voice thundered, "Do not fear their weapons! Fear silence! Fear obedience!" His words spread like fire. The humans surged again, stronger this time. A miner tackled another guard. An old woman threw stones until her hands bled. Children screamed the chant that had been born only last night. "We will rise! We will rise!" The aliens struggled. Their weapons were powerful, but their arrogance had made them weak. They had never imagined the slaves would fight back. The humans' anger, long buried, now exploded like a storm they could not control. Mother pressed herself against the wall, shielding her child. His tiny fingers clutched her torn dress, his eyes wide with fear. She whispered into his ear, "Be brave, my son. What you see tonight will shape tomorrow." In the center of the square, the soldier fought like a beast of war. Every punch, every kick, every strike carried the weight of his oath. Blood ran from a cut above his brow, but he did not slow. His voice was hoarse, but he kept shouting, "Hold the line! Protect each other! We fight not for victory, but for dignity." The crowd echoed him. They no longer fought for food, for scraps, for survival. They fought for their right to exist as humans. The alien leader, furious, stepped onto the platform again. His silver skin gleamed under the flickering lights. His voice boomed with rage. "Stop this at once, or we will burn your homes, kill your children, and erase your bloodline from this planet." The square fell into sudden silence. The humans froze, terror clawing at their hearts. The threat of losing everything, even their families, pierced, deeper than any weapon. The mother clutched her child closer, tears filling her eyes. Was this the cost of defiance? But the soldier raised his hand, his voice cutting through the fear like a blade. "No, listen to me. They want you silent because they fear your voices. They want you bent because they know you can stand. If they threaten your homes, then we build stronger ones. If they threaten your children, then we fight harder for them. They can take our bodies, but they will never take our dignity." The humans stirred again, their fear breaking under the weight of his words. Then, something unexpected happened. The mother, who had begged only for scraps a night ago, stepped forward. She held her child high, her voice trembling but fierce. "This child was dying, but tonight he lives. He lives because one man remembered his oath. And if one soldier can stand, then so can we. The crowd erupted. Her voice became their voice. They shouted louder than ever before. We will rise! We will rise! The chant shook the square. The aliens looked around, uneasy for the first time. They had power, but the humans had something greater, a fire that could not be crushed. The soldier's heart pounded as he saw the mother's courage. Her voice gave the crowd new strength, more than his own words ever had. He lifted his fist, high, blood dripping down his arm. Tonight, humanity is reborn! The humans surged like a wave. They struck with bare hands, with tools, with stones. And though the aliens fired, though the beams cut the air, the humans did not stop. Every fallen man and woman became fuel for the fire. The square became a battlefield, not of armies, but of wills. The soldier knew this was not victory, not yet. But it was something greater than victory. It was proof. Proof that humanity, no matter how starved, no matter how beaten, would never bow forever. And as the neon lights above finally flickered out, the chants of humans rose into the darkness. Like flames lighting the night, the battle of dignity had begun, a child's future. The colony square was no longer silent. The dust of battle hung in the air, mixing with the smell of smoke and sweat. Broken stones lay scattered, alien banners burned on the ground, and cries of the wounded echoed into the night. Yet through the chaos, one sound rose higher than all. Others, the voice of humanity, united in one chant. We will rise! We will rise! The aliens, beaten and humiliated, stumbled back toward their transports. Their armor was dented, their weapons shattered, their arrogance broken. For the first time in years, they looked afraid. The fire in human eyes was something they could not control. The mother stood near the center, holding her child tightly. His cheeks, once pale and hollow, now carried the faintest flush of life. He had survived. Against hunger, against cruelty, against silence, he had survived. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "You live, my son. You live." The soldier walked forward, his steps heavy with exhaustion. His face was streaked with blood and dust, his arms bruised but his spirit unbroken. As he reached the "Mother," the crowd parted for him, their eyes full of respect and awe. He looked at the child, then at the crowd of humans standing behind her. His voice was rough but steady. This is not the end. Tonight we fought for bread, tomorrow we fight for freedom, and the day after, we fight for our future. The crowd roared in agreement. Some raised their fists, others fell to their knees in tears. Old men, young women, children, they all knew they had witnessed the rebirth of something long buried. The mother stepped forward, her child still in her arms. Her voice trembled, but it carried across the square. My child would have died, forgotten and alone, but because of one man's courage, because of your oath, he lives, and his life will not be wasted. He will grow, and he will remember what it means to be human. Her words pierced every heart. People who had lived in silence now found their voices rising with hers. They shouted, not in fear, but in pride. The soldier's eyes softened. He touched the child's tiny hand. The boy's fingers curled weakly around his scarred finger, and for the first time in years, the soldier felt hope that went beyond war. This, child, he said, raising his voice so all could hear, is our symbol. He was starving yesterday, but today he breathes, and tomorrow he will walk stronger. He will carry our future. Let every alien, every empire, every tyrant hear this truth. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not die. Humanity rises. The humans roared, their voices like thunder rolling across the colony. The sound traveled into the night, echoing through the broken alleys, reaching every hidden corner where fear still lived. Somewhere, far above, The stars burned brighter as if listening. The aliens retreated completely, their transports lifting into the sky. The colony was not free yet, but the chains had cracked. The humans had tasted courage, and once tasted, it could never be forgotten. As the night calmed, the people gathered around fires, tending to their wounds, sharing what little food they had. But for the first time, they shared it together, not out of fear, but out of unity. The mother sat near the fire, rocking her child softly. He slept peacefully, his lips curled into the faintest smile. She brushed his hair back and whispered, "Your cry lit the flame. You saved us all." The soldier stood nearby, staring at the sky. His mind returned to his old comrades, those who had died with the same oath on their lips. He whispered quietly, so only the stars could hear. "I kept the promise. Humanity still stands." The mother's voice broke the silence. "What will happen now?" The soldier looked at her, then at the crowd. "Now we build. We fight when we must, but we build a world where children no longer starve, where mothers no longer beg. A world where your son, and every son and daughter, can walk proud." The mother's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of hope. She nodded slowly, pressing her lips against her child's forehead. The soldier turned to the crowd one last time that night. His voice was hoarse, but it carried strength. "Remember this day. Remember that we rose not with weapons, but with courage. The fire has begun, and it will spread to every colony, every planet, every corner where humans live. And when history speaks of this night, it will not speak of hunger or pain. It will speak of dignity. It will speak of hope. It will speak of a child's cry that woke the world." The people bowed their heads in respect. Some wept openly. Some clenched their fists with new determination. The flames of the fires flickered in the dark, reflecting in their eyes like the first light of dawn. And in the arms of his mother, the child slept on, unaware that he had become the heart of a movement, the symbol of a future where humanity would rise again. The battle was not over. The struggle was not done. But the path had been chosen, and as the humans looked toward tomorrow, they carried a truth deeper than hunger, deeper than fear. Humanity may fall, but it will always rise again.